Okay, this video is going to start you off with your castle creation. So you're going to want to look in Google Classroom to get all the requirements of everything that you need. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the brick for your castle. So your castle is going to be made out of bricks or stones, if you will. So the first thing we do is we change our castle name, and so I'm going to call it Burke Castle, and I'm going to save it. Shout out to HL ModTech. Did this in a previous version of TinkerCad, so I've modified it to make it work for the new version of TinkerCad. So what we're going to do here is under basic shapes, we're going to drag a box in. And this is going to be your brick. And what you're going to need to do is a whole lot of duplicating and manipulating to get where you want to be. Will save you a ton of time if you use the duplicate. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our block. We're going to make our block 2 high. We're going to make the block 4 wide and 3 deep. So we're making it 3 deep, so the front to back, and 4 for our width. All right, so then if I zoom in on this and I pan over and I look, here's my brick. Okay, now that looks like a pretty solid, like a square brick. I'm going to change the color of it. I want to get this to look more like stone, so I'm going to go with this grayish color. The other thing that I'm going to do, and this is where you're going to make your preference with it, is I'm going to add and change the radius on this to make it look more like a stone, so it's going to be rounded. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm adding the radius to it. Now I don't want to make it completely round, but I'm going to get it so my edges are a little round, so it looks like what I would think is a castle stone. Okay, so we've got it. So there's going to be my castle stone. All right, now to do this, I'm going to show you how to start and make your column. And again, you're going to want to go through and look at all your requirements of everything you need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my snap grid to 0.5 millimeter. And it's super important when we do this duplication that you follow these steps exactly. And you're going to do this kind of as you're measuring or setting up for the rest of your stuff. So I'm going to do Control D to duplicate it. So I'm going to hit Control and D, and that's going to duplicate it. And now what I'm going to do is using my arrow keys, I'm going to move my arrow key to the right, and you're going to see it's starting to shift out my brick. Now I want to make sure that the brick is touching, and I want to rotate it as well. So I'm going to move it out a little bit, and then I'm going to go down to this rotate. And you really want to make sure that you're not clicking any buttons. I'm going to rotate this 22.5. Okay, so that's going to rotate my brick for me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in, and I want to move this to where I think, now my bricks need to all be touching. I'm going to rotate around and make sure that everything is where it needs to be. So if I use the shift key, I can pan and zoom in, and I want to make sure that my brick looks good. That looks like it's a pretty solid touching brick. Now, because I didn't hit any other left mouse buttons to select anything, what TinkerCad will do is remember how I moved it over, how many spaces I moved over, and rotated the 25 degrees. So now, if I hit the Control D a bunch of times, my bricks will duplicate, but they'll not only duplicate, but they'll rotate the 22.5 and move to the corner. So now when I hit Control D, I just keep going around until I get my base stone. So this is going to be the base for my column, right? So there it is. So I've got my column base. So here I've already got one base for my column of my castle, okay? Now, here's what we can do with this. I'm going to take this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, okay? So I'm going to do Control D to duplicate it, Control D, so I've duplicated it. Now what I can do with this is if I hold down, again, using my arrow keys, Control and the up arrow, it will raise up my bricks to get them to where I want them to be. Now again, without hitting my left mouse button, I'm going to pan and shift and rotate and make sure that we've got this. And I want to use the Control and the up and down arrow keys to change my elevation. Now what I want to do is I want to get them so that they look good. So if I look at this, one of the things I'm graded on is on my bricks touching. Like, this is bad. My bricks aren't touching. So I'm going to go down, and I want my bricks to be touching. Now, the other thing that I want to do that's going to make mine look super awesome is I am going to rotate this just a little bit. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to click and drag out. And I'm going to rotate this just a little bit. So my bricks are not, they're not sitting directly on top of each other because I want to give it some space. So it's going to rotate just a little bit. Okay. Now I've done that, didn't hit my button. Now watch this, Control D. It's going to raise up and rotate each of my bricks. So I'm going to get this awesome brick wall. Okay. So now I'm going to just keep making this, and I can keep doing my Control D, and I get my shape as long as I want it to be. So when I get here, so right there, I've already got 208 shapes. So that's going to be kind of total height of mine. It's about 26 millimeters. I can go taller if I need to, but this is going to be the walls for my castle. So now that you've got one of your columns, you can duplicate the column. So duplication is going to save you a ton of time to get that. And so you want to use and manipulate through your duplication. So I can go back to and make my brick again, duplicate it out to make my walls, and you do the exact same thing, but instead of making the rotation, keep them nice and straight to get the walls for your TinkerCad castle. Good luck. Happy tinkering. If you need anything, reach out.